From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, December the 4th, the year 2023. So sit back and enjoy Paranormal Radio. And now here is the king, the super king of Paranormal Radio, Mr. Bob Trzeciak.
Oh, gosh, thank you, John. Every time we do the show, I'm something different. I'm the Super King. First I was the King, and then I'm Super King. Well, thank you so much. We haven't done, the King has been away from his court for a while here. We haven't done the show for the month of October. We didn't do it because October is just a crazy busy month, and I could not work the time in to do it. I wanted to, but couldn't do it. And then November sort of slipped by, too. A lot of stuff from October carried into the first 2 weeks in November. Then I went away for a couple of days and had a little vacation for myself and that, so it's been a while since we've done the show. It's been like 2 months, and I feel like it's been a year, when you're away from it that long. So we try to keep them on the monthly basis and at least, have our foot in the door with that. So anyway, we are back today doing the show for December. Actually, we've been having not too bad of a stretch of weather, except for the rain. It hasn't been too bad. I just want to throw a couple of plugs in for a couple of folks that have some things going on for the month of December. One would be Midnight Terror Haunted House. And with them, I was with them for the whole month of October. I've been with them for a few years now for the Halloween season, working with them. And they are actually doing a Christmas haunt. And the Christmas haunt will be on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of December. And I'll be back there with them with that. And they are located at 5520 West 111th Street. They're in Oak Lawn. You can call their number. Their number is 708-571-0266 for tickets on that. If you're looking for something alternative for Christmas, it really is. I mean, you say a Christmas haunted house or Christmas haunt, and you say, geez, I don't know about this. But no, it really is done nice, and it's a lot of fun to go through in that. So that will be the 15th, 16th, and 17th of December again at 5520 West 111th Street, Oak Lawn. Call them at 708-571-0266, or just go up on Midnight Terror on their website, and you can check the ticket prices there and that. And they always have some kind of specials going on and things going on with that, so you can get a deal on some tickets with that. And, of course, when you come out of the haunt, there's a little gift shop that it empties out into, and in the gift shop on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, Zoltar the Magnificent will be there in his fortune-telling booth, reading palms and reading tarot and that. So don't forget to stop by and say hello to Zoltar. Okay. Snowflake Healing. I want to throw in a nice word for them. They've been very nice to me. I just did an event with them on Saturday. With them. They are at 153 Market Street in Willow Springs. And they have a really neat store there. They do a lot of different workshops, a lot of metaphysical, a really neat shop. They sell all sorts of things in there. Looking for some gifts, some alternative gifts. I know Christmas, it's hard to buy, you don't want to buy somebody the hot cocoa mix or the box of handkerchiefs or whatever. You want to get something a little different. Stop in at Snowflake Healing. They have a lot of different gift items there, things you can find, different incense candles, different things, and other stuff that I guarantee you'll find something in there that you want to have. And also, too, many classes and different things they offer. Go up on their site, too, and look at their calendar and see what they've got going on. A lot of different things for people that would be interested in this stuff. Or maybe if you're just starting or just have a natural curiosity about it, stop by the shop and see what's going on there. That's Snowflake Healing, 153 Market Street. They're in Willow Springs. Their phone number is 708-330-5346. Again, that's 708-330-5346. That's for Snowflake Healing. The other one I want to put in a word for is my good friend, Mr. Colin Dunlop, that owns the Midway that I work for with Midnight Terror. Actually, I sort of work Midnight Terror, and I sort of am a Midway employee there. I'm kind of like on both sides of the fence there with them. And Colin it used to be Clockwork Mobile Escape Rooms, but now it's called, oh gosh, what in heaven's name is it? The company called that he's got, the jumping. They do all the jumping houses and bounce houses and all that, and party rentals and escape room rentals and all that. Gosh, I don't have his phone number. I wish I did. But go up on that. You could just look his name up, Colin Dunlop, D-U-N-L-O-P. On his site, he has everything posted on that, what he's doing. And he books stuff very early. He's very busy with a lot of fairs and stuff for the spring and summer months and that. And, you think now December, January, February, and that. Oh, no. They still book things for parties and that, too. People still rent them. And he'll give you a deal on it. Mention Paranormal Radio. that you heard it on Paranormal Radio and see if he gives you a little discount. He's usually good about giving people a break on things like that. So just a few folks there I want to throw some plugs in for. Glad to be back doing the show again. Poor Mr. Leland Pierson, my co-host here. I almost totally forgot about Leland. I'm so sorry to say. I notified him this morning. I went into the library and I went up on Facebook. I says, Leland, we're doing the show tonight. If you're able to make it, fine. If you can't do it, yep, Bob, I'll be there. He came, so thank you for coming, Leland.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, you're invited. You're part of the show.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, right. I let my co-host. He's the last one to know. So, what do you got going on for this time of year?
I might be taking that as a sign that I might be looking for a new job as a co-host. Not sure. I don't know if I'm getting let go from Paranormal Radio.
No, no, you're not getting let go from Paranormal Radio. Matter of fact, you might be taking the show over. I might be retiring from it.
Oh, Lord. Not too much. It was a busy holiday, busy October, November.
Now you're still doing you did coordinating, didn't you, with parties and things? And that?
Yeah, so we are now in our slow season. So
this is the slow. I would think this would be the party season.
No, thank God. We stay away from. My company stays away from Christmas or holiday parties and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Which I'm not complaining. I don't want to be.
Oh no! You got to break during the holidays. That's great. Yeah, no, it's kind of nice to have the free time during the holidays.
So now all those documentaries that I have lined up that I've been trying
to start working on them. I can actually
get there. Yeah, never a dull moment. Apologize if you hear somebody coughing. That's me. I'm at the tail end of a cold. And then I just remembered I was sick all November. I just remember we got to look into T-shirts for Paranormal Radio. Still.
Oh, that we had talked about.
Yeah, we chatted about that.
We talked about T-shirts for Paranormal Radio. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, you were going to look into that.
Yeah,
isn't that part of what you do with your thing? Okay, we'll have to look at that and see.
Take a look.
Some T-shirts on that.
So anybody, any graphic designers or anybody looking to make a easy buck, hit us up. Let us know. Let Bob know or myself know, and then we'll work out some designs or something.
So you want to pay somebody to do a design for us for Paranormal Radio?
Yeah, maybe.
For T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Unless you draw on. You want to draw it up?
Will you pay me if I do it?
I got about $5 in pocket.
No, I'm kidding. I was going to say, you're kind of creative. You should be. Eddie here is creative with stuff. We'd be able to come up with a design for us.
I'm terrible.
You're terrible? No, he's not. Don't listen to him. No, Mr. Eddie Garza. He's our guest that we have on this evening, Mr. Eddie Garza. I've known Eddie for, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, maybe?
It can be forever.
I've known Eddie for a while. And actually, I met Eddie at Midnight Terror.
Yes.
When I met him. He was actually one of the actors in Midnight Terror. And now he doesn't really do Midnight Terror anymore in that, but we still kind of stayed in touch loosely over the years in that. And, a couple of weeks back, I got a phone call. And, Bob, this is Eddie, and I said, where are you at? And he says, I just saw you walking on Pulaski. Yeah. I said, where are you? He said, well, I have something with my car. And I said, well, do you need a ride or anything with your car or that? He says, no, I'm fine. I got the car started. I said, okay, I'll come back down. I just walked home. I says, let me walk back up. I'll meet you. We'll have a cup of coffee. We talk. Now he lives right by me. He just lives a couple of blocks away, so he lives real close to me. So we're actually neighbors now. Are you in, we were talking about, Jasmine and I were talking about this in the car while we were waiting for you to come out. Are you in Elsip, or is it Marionette Park, or is it Garden Homes?
So it's a very weird spot that's in between a lot of the places, because you got Garden Homes that's about 2 blocks down from where you're at. Marionette Park is about 2 blocks to the east of my house.
Right.
And 2 blocks to the west of my house is Elsip. So I'm kind of in between all of them, but our address comes up as Allsip, so I'll just go with that.
Well, the address comes up Allsip, but the mail comes from the Mount Greenwood post office.
Absolutely.
Our mail comes from Mount Greenwood, too. It comes from because Allsip does not have its own post office. Mm-hmm. So I'm Allsip, and directly across the street from me is the Garden Homes fire station.
They've lost a lot of my mail.
Huh?
They've lost a lot of my mail.
Oh, they're horrible.
No.
They are. They really are. They're bad with the deliveries. And, I don't know necessarily know if it's their fault or if people are stealing the mail or things are getting mixed up or what's going on. But mail service has really gotten kind of crummy lately. It really is kind of bad, But, and there again, like I say, I don't know if it's just they're just too busy with it. They can't handle it, whatever. I don't know. But, yeah, they've been having some. That's why I was asking you where you're at, because I know you're like close to me. You're just like 2 blocks away from me. Mm-hmm. You're on Lawndale.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're real close to me, so I didn't know what you were. So you're Elsip, just like me. I'm in Elsip. Mm-hmm. And then right across the street is the Garden Homes, and a little further from that is Mount Greenwood, and Marionette Park is right there, too, by Bourbon Street there and that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
We get here in Norwich, sometimes we go over a week we don't get mail.
Yeah, the one restaurant by my house, the one little.
I do get mail. I get mail for people that are 2-3 blocks away from here.
See, it's every. That's what I'm saying. See, it's not only us. It's everywhere like that. It's every place they're doing that. Yeah.
I told the mailman one day, you ought to go to school, learn how to.
No, gee.
That's probably why you're not getting your mail.
That explains that. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that explains that. He got mad at you. Yeah. No, the mail guy that we had today that came, I happened to catch him as I was, leaving to come here and that, and he was just delivering our stuff and that. He was very nice, and he's been there before and that. So they, they're trying. What can I tell you? They're trying to do the best they can do. Gosh almighty. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, I wanted to mention the Christmas tree ship. That's a little story I like to tell. Every year I like to tell that one. Yeah, Eddie was asking me about the Christmas tree because I said, we just went past Acacia Cemetery coming here, and I said, oh, that's where the Christmas tree captain is buried. He's buried in there, Captain Herman Schuneman, but I says his name is on the headstone, but he's actually not in there because his body was never found. And I said Mr. Alva Roebuck of Sears Roebuck and Company fame is also in there. Next Monday, I'm going to be doing, is it next Monday? Yes, not this Monday coming up, the following Monday, the 11th of December. I'll be at the Worth Library. I'm doing a whole presentation there all about Sears Roebuck and Company, about the Sears Wish Book and the catalog and all that, called Dear Mr. Sears. I call it Dear Mr. Sears because I got a lot of letters that customers actually wrote to Sears that are kind of funny. Some actually wrote these customers that actually wrote these hilarious letters. Some of them are really ood. So anyway, I'll be doing that. But anyway, Mr. Alva Roebuck is buried in there. And we were talking, and he says, oh, what's the Christmas tree ship? And I says, I'm not going to tell you now. I'll wait when I'm on the radio. I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you what it is. So this is the story of the Christmas tree ship. And I won't give you the Old Testament version of it. I'll give you the short version of it. It's basically 1912 in Chicago. And Captain Herman Schuneman and his brother August, they had run what they called a schooner. It was called the Christmas tree ship. And what they would do is every year they would take a run, like in mid-November, they would take a run across Lake Michigan to go to across Lake Michigan into Michigan, and there they would have a crew of maybe 5 or 6 guys, maybe 7 of them, and they would cut trees. They would load the ship with trees, and then they would sail back across. It was actually an old sailing vessel that they used, and they would sail back across Lake Michigan over to the Clark Street Bridge in Chicago, and there, right off the ship, they would sell trees to the public. People would, people in the city of Chicago would buy their Christmas trees from him. And the ship that he used in 1912 was already an older ship, and I think the Rose Simmons, R-O-U-S-E, Simmons, S-I-M-M-O-N-S, and the ship actually changed hands maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times. It was an older wooden sailing vessel, not brand new, especially not by 1912 standards. By now we had steam and everything in that. But nonetheless, it was still a serviceable ship, and they used it. And 1912 happened to just be a bad year for the shipping industry. 1912, of course, was the Titanic disaster. And then this little incident here in Chicago on Lake Michigan with the Christmas tree ship. Herman Schuneman decided to take a run a little earlier in November to go across because it had been pretty stormy. The fall had been pretty stormy on Lake Michigan. Weather wasn't the best, so he decided to take a nice run across. At first they were thinking maybe not doing it, but he knew the run would net him quite a bit of money, and it would help him pay off some bills and things, so he wanted to do it. And so he wound up doing it, and of course they went across, they stayed there, they cut, for the week or whatever, cut the trees, loaded the ship and all that. They loaded it with an unusually heavy cargo too, which wasn't to their advantage. And then en route, coming back across Lake Michigan, heading back to the city, to Chicago, to the Clark Street Bridge, they ran into a bad storm on the lake, an ice storm. And what was actually happening was so much ice and snow was coming, it was gathering on the trees that they had lashed to the decks of the ship. The ship got so heavy, it was actually pulling the ship down into the water. A lighthouse on shore actually saw them and saw they were into some trouble, they were having some problems, and they actually sent a small gasoline-powered boat out to try to help, but then that boat wound up having to turn around and come back. Couldn't make it in the storm. And so the Rose Simmons wound up sinking with the loss of all the crew. They were all lost and perished in the sea. The ship sunk down into about 162 feet deep water in Lake Michigan, and that was the end of that. Nobody's bodies were ever found, including the good Captain Herman Schuneman. And Herman Schuneman was apparently a very well-liked man, very beloved by the city of Chicago. He would donate trees to churches. He would give people a break, poorer people. He wanted to see everybody have a ship, and it was a great celebration. It was nice. When the Christmas tree ship came, they would have bands there. He would sell food off the ship and that. So it was like a nice thing. It was like a nice outing for people and that. And then all of a sudden, in 1912, this kind of came to the end. That was it. In 1922, someone actually found there was a ship. Now listen to this, how weird it gets. There was a ship called the Reindeer. It was a fishing trawler on Lake Michigan, and in one of their nets they pulled up none other than Captain Schuneman's wallet with his belongings, which he had put into an oilskin bag, waterproofed. When he saw there was no hope for the ship, he put his valuables in this, and that was it. It went down. And then in 1922, which was 10 years later, the ship Reindeer found the Christmas tree captain's wallet with his belongings in it and that. And it was returned to his wife, Barbara. He had 2 daughters. I think Hazel and Pearl were the 2 daughters. And they actually were continuing the Christmas tree ship tradition for a while, too. They were doing it. And then every now and again, too, supernatural tales would bob up of this mystery ship sailing on the lake, and people claimed they saw it on Christmas Eve and this kind of thing. And trees would occasionally bob up to the surface of the water, wash on shore, and they would be Christmas tree ships, and they say, oh, there's something supernatural going on. Well, that was a little easily to explain because the trees that were lashed to the ship when it went down, the lashings would break loose, and then the trees would bob up to the surface and then wash ashore in that. There is actually a museum over in Michigan that has a lot of those trees. They made ornaments out of them and stuff and did that with it, so you can actually buy an ornament made with a tree from the Christmas tree ship. He is actually buried right over here, not too far from where we do well, he's not buried there because his body was never found, but his name is on the headstone. It's over here in the Acacia Cemetery, and it's a ground level stone, which are most all of them in Acacia are all ground level stones, so it's a little harder to find because they don't have the above ground monuments. But Barbara Shunem and his wife, and his name is on there, and I think she died a little later, maybe 1933 or so when she passed away. And his name is on there, too, even though his body's not in there because he was never found. There's 2 little Christmas trees on his headstone. And it's said that when you go by the grave, sometimes people can get the scent of a Christmas tree. Yeah, you smell the scent of pines by being around by his headstone. So just one of those little supernatural tales, that we have kind of going on with that. A local story, City of Chicago story. So kind of nice. They did find the wreck of the Rose Simmons in 1973, I think it was. They were diving, and they did find the wreck down there. And strangely enough, a lot of the Christmas trees, of course, now all, no needles on the trees or anything, pretty much just the trees with the, the trunk with the branches on them, were still lashed to the ship, strangely enough, yeah. So another one of those strange little tales. To this day, it is said that on Christmas Eve, if you're anywhere near Lake Michigan, and especially if you're near the Clark Street Bridge, where it used to be or still is for that matter, if conditions in the atmosphere are just right, they say if you glance out over the lake, you can see this old 3-masted wooden sailing vessel kind of glide across the lake and then sort of disappear on you. And many people say that is the Rose Simmons trying to return to make its last trip back to the Clark Street Bridge. So there's my supernatural tale about the Christmas tree ship. So there it is, Eddie.
That actually intrigues me a lot.
Yeah, I love those little. I love stories with the truth to them like that. Yeah, something that actually did happen. Today we have an interesting subject, and it's perfect for the Christmas season. We're going to talk about exorcism.
Oh God.
Yeah, entirely different. So a show I wanted to do for some time, and I wanted Eddie to do this. We sit down sometimes and over a cup of coffee, him and I will have these wonderful conversations. Yes. Yeah, at Burger King. We'll have these wonderful conversations, and I say, oh my gosh, we got to do this on a show. And that's what we do. So, Eddie, I don't know how much of this you want me to mention or not, but...
You can mention everything that we spoke about, any questions that you might have that are coming up. I reviewed all the sheets that you handed me right now.
And they're not authentic.
No, only the sheets that are on my side of the table are authentic.
I kind of suspected that, yeah.
The other sheets are inauthentic and actually pulled from somewhere else. So right there on your side of the table, you're holding the Litany of the Saints, and that's a whole different thing than what's going on. And from what I'm seeing here, there is one line that I do remember from the rites, right? Even if I say it for you, nothing's going to happen. It's just that piece on its own.
Yeah.
But that piece goes, carry our prayers up to God's throne, that the mercy of the Lord may come quickly, come and lay hold of the beast, the serpent of old, Satan and his demons. That is just a portion, and it's located nowhere in here, but I'm pretty sure that was in the beginning of the exorcism.
Well, really quick, let's hold up, because Bob and these folks, they're jumping ahead. Folks at home, including myself, what sheets are y'all talking about? What's going on here?
I was waiting.
Y'all are jumping a little ahead.
No, I was going to mention that. I was waiting for Eddie to stop talking.
We need you to moderate this. Please moderate this because we're going to be very lost.
See, that's why I knew what I was doing when I picked Leland for co-host, because great minds think alike. I was waiting for Eddie to stop, and then I was going to explain that. What this is actually, it's called the rite of exorcism.
Bob is holding the rites of exorcism on the table for all of our viewers.
It's called the rite of exorcism. Now, one of the things, like Eddie Eddie pointed out, one of the things that made me a little suspicious of it was when I saw the Litany of the Saints. And I says, this is not the authentic rites. This isn't it. There are, now you can put, that's exactly where I got this. I got this off the internet. There again, like I say about your internet information, be careful. It's not all the real stuff.
This came from Catholic Online.
Well, I don't know where.
Sounds
I
legit.
don't think it was Catholic Online, but it's not the authentic rites. The authentic rites of exorcism that the Catholic Church uses, I'm sure you will not find anywhere online.
No, absolutely not.
I don't think you will. No. Now, Eddie was taught the rites of exorcism. Eddie,
unfortunately, taught the exorcism rites, but that is because I really pressured a priest that my mother works with into teaching me this stuff, and he really didn't want to. It took a couple years of pressuring the man and pestering him at every waking moment. You know, he wakes up for the day, and I'm there in his room just like, you got to teach me this stuff, man. Please.
So, to jump in really quick, weirdly enough, I think I told you this last night or this morning. Last night, I actually went and saw The Exorcism on 35 millimeter. It's the original pressing.
The one over at the Regal Box Theater? Or?
Yeah, Music Box.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so when Bob told me this morning that we're doing an exorcism episode, I'm like, oh, that's weird.
We're doing
also,
exorcism.
gee, what a coincidence.
I've read a couple books on exorcisms and listened to a lot of interviews with like Father Malachi Martin. Not sure if you're aware of it. He was the authority. He was the number one exorcist in the Catholic Church in the late 50s and early 60s.
Probably a deferred. He must be part of the order. So for people to even be able to perform an exorcism, you have to be part of the order. So when I'm talking about the order, I'm not saying that there's 50 exorcists out there. That's just not how it works. But there are 4, and there's no specific order to them, which throws people off because they don't want you to know what is what. And bear in mind here, I was taught the exorcism rites without being ordained by the church, which is already one of the biggest no's. And I have no idea of a lot of the ins and outs of this stuff, which is where everything really went downhill. But part of that order, you would have the exorcist, the acolyte, the porter, and the lector. So the person you're talking about may be part of that order, whether it's one of the exorcist people or
He was like the
acolyte.
left-hand man to the Pope at the time. John Paul II,
kinda like-
would have been. I'm not Catholic, so I'm not sure.
And on the
possible
50s
he
and
was-
60s, it wouldn't have been John Paul II.
It would
wasn't-
No, he was a little later in the 80s.
probably be an acolyte. So basically with acolytes, it's a Greek term for the word servant or like a server.
Okay.
So their job essentially is to kind of like help everybody else out as that secondary man. And no matter what they do, they're there. So when somebody's giving an exorcism, that's the second guy you take with you. The other ones are just kind of like the in-between men. And as I told Bob before, when people want to perform an exorcism, they send somebody out first. But even then, that is a very, very big long shot. If somebody were to say, I think my daughter's possessed, 9 out of 10, the church is going to say, well, smack your kid, get him in order. You know, they're not going to believe you.
Oh, it's something they don't take lightly. I know, and it's a big. Sometimes it's a couple of years before they actually perform the exorcism. They have to investigate
Absolutely.
this. It's a whole process. It's not just like somebody all of a sudden rolls their eyeballs back in their head or something and makes a few grunting sounds and okay, let's get a priest out here and perform an
If
exorcism.
they don't get back to you within
it's
3 years, they're not coming.
No, they think it's not legitimate. Yeah.
But in order for them to do so, it would require somebody upper in the food chain to do so. So, for example, the guy who baptized me as a child is the archbishop that is now at the Vatican. He was cool. I don't know what he's up to these days. Probably living large over there.
Well, he's the archbishop at the Vatican, so
He's going up in the world, but you know, in those cases, it would take his word to even sway somebody's opinion overseas to take a look into this. So you could have 4 priests in the room witnessing somebody levitate. They would have to report to the archbishop. The archbishop has to report to one of the people in the order, whether it's the porter or the lector, and that person would relay it over to Rome. And the people over in Rome would probably be like, okay, well, you know, this guy are saying this, but it could be a telephone line for all we know, and it probably isn't the same thing that we've been hearing. So they don't want to waste the time and money to send somebody out, because if they send somebody out and it turns out that this is all one big sham, they will shut your church down. The Catholic Church doesn't play. And
Geez, I don't know if they want to do that. So many churches are closing as it is without them shutting them down voluntarily.
They don't see a herd in profits or anything like that. The church where I was baptized in has been shut down as well, and that was the biggest church in that part of town. It's still there.
They're having a tough time. Yeah, with the churches. There's a lot of churches and schools and that they're folding left and right. Yeah, it's a shame to see that. But
St. Adalbert Church over in Pilsen is actually one of the most beautifulest churches ever. Huge thing, takes up a whole city block, and they shut it down to keep the tiny church that my mother works at open. And I said, well, why not just close this one, keep the bigger one open? Because not only can it
they can't support they probably don't have enough parishioners to support the John's making the money sign with his hands. They just don't have enough money to support the big church to keep it open. A parish, I lived in Summit all my life until I retired and moved to Elsip, and all the years I grew up there, we had two very strong Catholic parishes. St. Blaise, which I attended grammar school there up until 5th grade, and they had a church, a convent, a rectory, a very strong parish, and the other one was St. Joseph, all in the same town. Summit's not that big of a town, and they had two very strong Catholic parishes. And St. Joseph also had a church, a school, a rectory, convent, the whole thing. And then little by little, things started whittling away. St. Blaise closed its school. The church is still running at St. Blaise. The convent is gone. The convent is not there anymore. St. Joseph's did the same thing. Got rid of the convent. Got rid of the nuns. Not sorry to see the nuns go. I hate to say it, but the nuns were not nice to us when we were in school. And then they closed the school. And now, as of the 26th of November, they had the last mass in the church, and they're through. They're going to tear the whole parish down, the whole church, everything's going, and they're going to just put real estate there. Homes are going to go in there. So they're having kind of a tough time. Yeah.
We have the same thing here in Norwich. Right over on Montrose Avenue in Ozanam was Divine Savior. And I used to go to that church. And now it's all closed down. The school is gone. The church is gone. And now I noticed today when I went by, on the marquee out in front of the church, they got a big sign, Village of Norwich. So from what Oscar told me, that they're supposed to tear the church down and put up a new Norwich Village of Norwich facilities there, City Hall, police department, and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. A lot of those churches are going down, and they're being developed into other things.
A lot of this all happened because of the COVID. People could not go to church and could not support the church because they couldn't because of the virus.
I think it was actually. I don't think it was just I don't think in 2 years' time of the COVID or 3 years' time of COVID I think it was something that's been a long time coming for the church, and young people have been staying away from the church in droves. They've been staying away in droves from the church.
Nowadays, here just like I was telling you before, a couple of weeks ago, my sister went down to Florida for her granddaughter's wedding. I said, was it a church service? Oh no, it was in some neighbor's backyard, and some neighbor married them. They don't even have priests, or they don't even have the Catholic religion marry anybody anymore. It's all
They're having a tough time on that. Yeah, they're going to have to, if the church is going to want to survive, they're going to have to change things. They're going to have to modernize. They're going to have to do some different things. One of them, I think, that we're kind of really getting off the subject here, the exorcism.
It ties into the exorcism, what you guys are talking about when it comes to the finances here. So, for example, you pulled up these rites of exorcism from a Catholic.org website. Now,
is that where I got it from? I don't even know where I got it from.
The truth is that the church would never put this information out.
No.
It would rather be something that's intriguing people. Right now, a big thing, The Exorcist. Everybody wants to watch The Exorcist. And what better way to draw people into the religious aspect of it than to pique curiosity by putting this stuff out there, but without having to put the real thing in people's hands. So this is something that's more like a gateway. People will watch The Exorcist and say, I want to know what that is. I want to see what it is. They're going to look it up. And some people may even be so fanatical about it that they'll join the order and try to go up through the ranks, live their whole lives so they can get to this point. And I know that sounds crazy, but there are men who've joined the order for way much less.
Sure.
You get people that are just down on their luck. They got nowhere to go, and then they find religion and go from there.
But is that the right reason or the wrong reason for going into the priesthood?
So, after a while,
you watched a movie, The Exorcist or something, and that makes you want to join the priesthood.
If
I don't know.
you didn't pay attention to that movie because spoiler alert for this movie, it's been out for 50 years. Both the priests are dead. They didn't do a good job.
No.
Well, they did a good job, but they didn't make it out.
Well,
yeah.
To go off of that, actually, so that is based on a real thing.
Oh, yeah. It was based on a real case.
In Baltimore.
This girl went somewhere between 60-something days, 74-something days malnourished before officially dying. Now, the priests were actually charged with that, and they had felony charges. Only the secondary guy, I think he got misdemeanor fines for it. But the people that were involved did face heavy backlash for that incident. Because from what other people are saying is that she was actually just schizophrenic. She was just actually crazy. And this is one of those times where the church looked at this scenario and said, this could be real, even though it wasn't. So that's why they are very, very selective, because no matter what they do, they could go help somebody, but the second somebody hears, oh, the church is doing an exorcism, there will be millions that will lose their mind over this and accuse them of all kinds of stuff. So
it's got to be a very touchy subject for them because of the liability involved in something.
From what I've read and heard from exorcists or whatever, priests and such, is before the Catholic Church doesn't like to perform them because one, it's kind of barbaric, and two, it's like the Catholic Church doesn't really want to be known for doing something that's so old-timey. But if it ever comes to it, no, because we live in a modern age, they'll give them to a psychologist and psychiatrist first to be diagnosed.
Yes, but in the
accidentally kill some
I mean, if
person.
somebody's levitating and speaking dead Latin, I'm pretty sure I'll know off the bat. But
I was going to say now, like you said, 4 priests, and someone's levitating. You see someone floating through the air, and 4 priests are witnessing this, and they say, "Oh, well, it's not really, it's not a possession." Well, what is it? If it isn't that, what else?
I'm the most skeptic guy. Yeah. I'm the straight man here sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like
that's where I'm at too. So I'm not a religious person at all. And when
you're not a religious person, that's very strange.
No.
I'm very surprised to hear that because
the archbishop even baptized.
That's
you.
right, and you learned the rites of exorcism, and you work for the priests. And
I'm
all
actually
that stuff
agnostic, so I mean I've seen things happen. I
don't
know what causes it, but as I've explained to Bob, back when I did a lot of paranormal researching, I actually had a team of carpenters and just plumbers, different people, even electricians that would come out, and we would deduce. And even though I would pay a little bit out of pocket myself, it would just be to verify to people straight up, like, no, this noise you're hearing in the wall is because you're in an old Chicago house where the pipes haven't been changed.
Okay, you're debunking things. Yeah, okay, exactly. That's a big part of the paranormal, debunking it, yeah.
The room smells weird, but it's because your gas line in the kitchen is broken.
Yeah.
That's, I'm spacing on his name. Bob, you might remember the ghost hunter that has the ambulance here in Chicago.
That's Dave Olson.
Dave Olson.
He's a great guy. I love Dave,
Some of the guys that are on his crew are HVAC guys, just for that same reason.
They're what?
That's exactly.
Like heating, appliance people, and stuff like that.
So it's kind of good to have them on your team because when you do, that's why I always tell people about the paranormal. I says a good deal of the paranormal in paranormal investigating is actually debunking it rather than proving it. A few people witness something happening there, and you say, okay, we're hearing sounds, we're hearing this or whatever. You start investigating. Is it noises in the pipes? Is it something in the lighting? Is it, whatever it could be, and you go through all this. So that's why it makes sense to have a team of people that are sort of have some expertise in that.
And just in my
they can detect some defects that would cause something like that to happen.
In my experience alone, Bob has only seen me once when I'm like full dressed up, ready to go, and I look more like I'm ready to go to war with somebody because I'm wearing a bulletproof vest and I have all these gadgets attached to me. In my experience, I've never been attacked by a ghost. I've been attacked by like gadgets. People, crazy people, because a lot of these ghost hunters out there, they don't know exactly what they're getting into, and they think, oh man, this place is haunted, I better be ready. No, be wary that there are spotters. There are just crazy people hiding out in these abandoned houses you're checking out.
Yeah.
You go to some abandoned factory and you never come back. No, you didn't go missing because of a ghost that time. There's somebody down there with you. So I'm more or less ready in case of the crazy people or gangsters that you might run into that are doing something down there. And everything else that I keep on my belt isn't like I got a little spirit box. No, it's It's stuff like a chromium meter that lets me check the air, because if I start feeling dizzy, I know I'm either breathing in gas or I'm having a reaction to something around me. So I check for gas in the air. In some cases, I have a little tester that tells me, if there's something weird on the floor and I pick it up and my skin's starting to break out, I'll like press it and it'll tell me if there's something on it. Whether it's some form of
chemical
lead.
acid, whatever it may be.
Well, they even bring that up because it's like
lead is a common thing. Because
sure.
when you go
lead in older buildings,
like
asbestos especially.
Stuff
in older buildings, they're loaded with asbestos. They're loaded with lead.
And you can't really check for asbestos either in the air. So that's one of those things where people are like, "Oh, I got delirious in there. I started going crazy." Maybe because you're inside of the insulation of the house, like looking for something.
Now, if you're just going there, like say you went to do an investigation or something, you're in a place that has that in it. It's not going to affect you that fast.
No, it's not.
If you're living in it and you're there every day, and that, yes, that's going to have an effect on you. Day to day, you're in that environment and that.
The only way
you're there for a few hours or something like that, it's not going to have that effect.
By such a thing would be, let's say John's house, right? Like, let's say we go to John's house, and the basement is already molding up, and then he has a sub basement, and the air is thinner down there. And it's way worse because, all the mold that's up here, imagine how it is down there. So in that case scenario, the environment could affect you a lot quicker within a half an hour time span just from breathing alone. But in a lot of cases, I've never had to deal with that. Mostly what I use is this, it's an electronic detector. This kind of thing is like, it looks like a car key, but you press it. And if there's any kind of cell phones around there, any kind of electronic device, it'll start beeping like a metal detector.
Okay.
But it only comes from stuff that give off like a Bluetooth kind of thing going on. So if you had a phone on you, it'll start beeping. So I don't carry my phone on me when I go out there. So if I start hearing it beep and I'm in a house alone, that means that there's some sort of electrical source in there. Whether it's a wall outlet or something else.
Something's going on, yeah.
So, because if we were to bring one out right now, it would go off because the lights or the electrical outlet or even these, or somebody's cell phone at the table. So that's the only time.
So it's nothing supernatural, nothing paranormal. It's something.
Yeah, because if I'm out alone in Bachelor's Grove Cemetery and that thing is going off like crazy, that means that there's an electrical source around there, and there's not supposed to be.
No.
But a lot of people affiliate the paranormal with electromagnetic fielding. And
it seems to be, I don't know how new that theory is, but it seems to be something new to me. Or relatively new, at least.
What me and Pete were talking about before Pete's mysterious disappearance.
You're telling me, yeah.
What we were discussing was electromagnetic fields, and why is it that whenever there is proof of the paranormal, it's only on a photograph, usually, right?
Well, photograph, and then also too, they claim with the EVP recordings, and
Sure.
They say that a lot of it tends to do with energy, and electromagnetic fields apparently from studies brings it out more. So that's what Pete was doing by putting these stakes into the ground and basically just sending out little volts into the ground. And if he created a circle and kept doing it, he would create its own little electromagnetic barrier. Per se.
And then whatever it was, you would see in the center of this.
No, that would be the second part, what I was talking about with him, because I wanted to come at it from a scientific approach of how this would possibly work. What I was saying was that it's a little off track, but we're talking about opening up a gateway to hell using this wheel. And when he was intrigued by this idea that I had where, let's say the reason why you see a ghost on camera is because of the photon energy that emits from your camera. So when the camera flashes, that is a photon capacitor building up and releasing, causing that flash. Now, let's say we get a wheel with giant industrial photon capacitors on it that somehow becomes self-sustaining through kinetic energy, right? The faster it spins, the more it puts out.
The more energy is coming out, of course.
And at each single interval, each time it rotates once, it lets off a flash. The faster it gets, the more flashes are going off, until it gets to the point where this is just one big blinding light. That's how fast it's going. But let's, theoretically speaking, if we had that kind of power, right, let's say we had a nuclear power source powering that thing, it would spin forever just on the lowest setting. But with that being said, if this photon energy is being released at such a constant blinding light stream, would we be able to see the paranormal through that?
You don't know until you develop the machine.
And we are not going to do that. I'll tell you what.
You'll never know. It's a theory. It's a theory, but you don't know until you actually develop it. And do you want to develop something quite that dangerous?
No. The closest thing I've ever heard of such a thing was this machine designed by the devil himself for man to use to open the gateways of hell. And, the closest thing you can get an idea of how that would work would be watching the movie 13 Ghosts with
that old movie
Lillard and Geoffrey Rush. Not the old one.
Not the castle.
The newer remake.
The one from like the 2000s.
Okay.
Now that machine was built at a whole different angle of it.
Okay.
But that machine, the way everything rotates,
but now, Eddie,
is kind of
that's a movie. That's a movie.
Well, it could
that's
be
Hollywood.
A movie. Theoretically speaking, the way that I put it would be kind of the natural way of going about doing that.
Okay.
So the way that they did it in the movie was using dead Latin chants and capturing spirits and getting all that done. This is done by using the kinetic energy wheel with photon capacitors attached to it.
Okay, but now people with the photon capacitors, you see ghosts from this electronic energy, this electromagnetic energy. What about people that just see something without any devices? Of course, now you aren't recording it because you're not recording it with your eyes, but you do see something. So is that electronic energy coming from you to what is it?
The only thing I can actually think of to give you more of a scientific reasoning is I'm kind of one of the believers that at some point in time, the dimension closest to us where, let's say, we're talking right now, and you move your head this way.
Mm-hmm.
But in this dimension, you're just sitting there. So the second dimension that's closest to us is almost the exact same thing as us. But at one point in time, they managed to destroy themselves.
This is bordering. This is a little bordering on time travel.
No. So
it's not.
It's more of like a metaphysical.
Yeah. So there are different, let's say, universes of us, but not living in the same time. So
that's what I was just saying. Time travel.
But
that's what I just.
So we're living in just this moment, right?
Yes.
The universe over to us is also living in this moment, but they're doing something slightly different that makes them that universe. So let's say in one universe, me and him got in a car accident on the way out from here tonight.
Yeah.
And in another universe, me and him are doctors.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this universe, we're having this discussion. In another universe, the closest one to us is also having this discussion, but about a slightly different topic. It could be almost the same thing.
About haunted doctors.
So in this...
Isn't that almost like...
it's multiverse theory.
Like having having another life, almost like this life here I had a car accident, this life here I'm a doctor, this life here I'm a street person, whatever it may be. I don't
Yeah, I believe Einstein spoke of this multiverse theory where the universe closest to us will end up being destroyed, whether it's by nuclear warfare or something happening. So even though everything is the same in that universe next to us, one thing happens that will cause all chaos. So let's say in their universe, during the Cold War, somebody actually pressed the button.
Sure.
And they were destroyed during that. So in this theory, it's possible that the universe closest to us was destroyed. And because energy is constant, it can affect our universe in that aspect. It had such a massive energy type of fallout that things will happen here that you kind of stand there and you go, this is deja vu. I could have sworn I just did this.
But then where does, if you're going to go into this, now we got to bring this
this is just
elephant in the
theories.
room. So where does hell come in with this? Is hell just the atomic bomb hit there and you think it's hell, but it's really just a fiery hellscape?
I would think that...
And how would, demons come into this? If it's just multiverse theory, then,
Well, that's the thing, is that me and Pete were talking about this during the wheel discussion prior to his disappearance, is that what if there really isn't a heaven or hell? What if, because our energy is constant, you could still be here, but not actually be here, right? So the energy that you possess inside of you would stay here, but not as a physical being. Not that I'm saying that, I'm believing in heaven or hell and a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with this, but let's say
But you must, in some degree, you're talking about opening up a hell gate.
Well, there's just so many different things. It's one of those things where, as they say in Chicago, you screw around, you find out. But sometimes you kind of have that little bit of, I don't want to screw around today, because I don't know what that will find out. You know?
Sure.
It's just, I take
now,
it with a grain
religiously,
of salt.
I think religiously, everyone's belief of a heaven and hell is, heaven is the area above, it's up in the clouds, and it's paradise, and it's beautiful and wonderful, and hell is something below. That.
And I mean, the best way to describe that would be the movie.
Here we go to movie again.
No. It's actually a good movie that would describe what you're talking about. It's called What Dreams May Come.
That was a very strange film. The Robin Williams film.
It featured heaven as more of a subjective reality.
Yes.
It's what you want it to be and who you see other people as.
That was a very strange. It was an interesting concept, but it was a very strange film.
But would you believe that? Let's say, I'm not downgrading on your religious beliefs.
No.
But I'm just speaking. Theoretically, if heaven is real to you, do you think it would be what you want it to be, or what is put before you, and you just accept that as is?
That's a good point. I don't know. Every civilization from the beginning of time has always had some vision of this paradise, this extra, this after death, this wonderful place to go to.
It's kind of been on my mind. Would heaven be what everybody wants it to be for themselves, like as their promised place, or is it just kind of like you're sitting in a lobby and you're just like, is this it? I'm just in the waiting room?
I guess the only way we find out is when we enter that realm and we're there and we see what happens. And then again, this may all just be we live this life and we're dead and nothing happens and that's
it's
it.
Just black stardust.
That's it. It's done.
And I mean,
but I guess that's where. But see, that's when then you're crossing the lines with religion and that, because that's where faith and religion comes in. You believe there's something more to it.
We don't need to have theoretical talks because we have a man here that has supposedly been an exorcist.
That's right.
He's seen it, so there's not really much of an argument now of stardust and lobbies if you're pulling demons out of people.
So
let's move to that. I'm so curious about
that. See, now we all know.
You're going to actually agree with me on a lot of what we're going to be talking about, because I'm definitely more of a scientific approach that I spend literal money out of my pocket to debunk stuff, just to tell people you're crazy.
Right.
Stop calling me. And that is
Welcome
no
to
way.
My world.
That's no way.
But you keep picking up the phone for me.
I get these. Yeah. Well, someday I'll tell you about some of the phone calls I get. Yeah.
So, to be clear, before I start talking about this exorcism, I am, like I said before, I'm not a very religious person. I'm more agnostic. But I am one of those people that have a pursuit to just disprove stuff off the bat. Not like a one of those mean butthead type of people that are you're wrong and I'm going to go prove you're wrong right now.
Right.
But, back then there were so many people watching Zach Bagans online, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. He looks like Papa Roach. He wears Ed Hardy. We got to watch this guy.
Did anybody really say he's that cool looking? I don't know. I love him.
I'll be honest with you, I actually saw him, but I didn't know it was him.
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
I didn't know it was Zach Bagan.
He looks like Sean Clark.
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I just went to Las Vegas, the 13th, 14th.
You went to his museum, right?
I went to his museum, and he was in the museum. He was looking at me. I was looking at him, and then we went to another spot, and he's looking at me and looking at him, and it's like, it's something about it. We're just looking at each other like eye contact.
Rolled your eyes back and growled at him.
I honestly,
He knew that was Bob from Chicago Paranormal Radio, and
he should have knew and recognized.
He got starstruck.
Now he's.
He should have started bowing.
Honestly, I didn't know who he was. I really did not know. All I knew was I saw the Las Vegas Museum. I wanted to go to the museum and that, but I did not know Zach Bagan because I'd never seen any of his shows or anything. Not that I didn't want to see him. I just never did see him.
They're fun.
But then later on, when I came back from the trip, I started looking some stuff up on him. I said, oh my gosh, that's the guy that was in the museum. That was him. I said, he was right there. I said, if I would have known that, I would have shook hands or introduced myself or got his autograph or something. But I didn't know that was Zach Bagan's. But he was there.
The Circle Back. I'm not hating on him. That's like my guilty pleasure show. I love that show, but it's so easy.
Doesn't
to
he always give up his crew
I've never
to the
seen
ghost?
it. I've never seen any of the show. I've never seen any of those shows.
The ghost will be levitating his audio engineer in the air, and he's like, and there he goes. Yeah. You know what he also said about you while you're raising him up there?
Let's get that right. When the producer is bringing up that audio engineer, levitating him. But anyway, let's circle back to this
to
exorcism.
Be fair, you know, I've never been that religious either in this aspect. So for me to perform a exorcism is just absurd as it is. And it wasn't an exorcism on a person either.
Have you ever performed an exorcism?
Yes, and it was the worst time in that family's life, and they no longer live there. Nobody lives in that building anymore.
Okay.
And they blamed me online for weeks coming, even though they were crying at my feet asking for this. And I told them that's not what I do.
Be careful what you wish for. You might get it.
Now, why didn't they go to the church instead of you?
So originally they called me because the daughter of the family had went to high school with me, and she had seen some online exploits that I was going and doing house calls where I was just like debunking stuff for people. And upon seeing how well it was going, you know, she decided to call me after her grandmother had passed away. And they said, we believe her spirit's still here. And I said, I believe her spirit's in the cemetery. They weren't accepting, you know, the alternatives, because for me to do house calls, I am very skeptical of a lot of things people tell me, because a lot of people, when they're left alone in the house for too long, a creak can turn into,
yes,
it was a loud bang.
Yeah.
So,
and some people want to believe in the paranormal so badly that they just have this way of creating these things, and there's nothing there.
And then also, if you're grief-stricken, like, of course you want
yes,
it. Absolutely.
Yeah, they want to have connections with their husband, and you got to, when you're in that kind of a vulnerable state, you got to watch, because one of two things is going to happen. One, it's going to make you crazy. Two, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that play up to that. And yes, I can contact your husband for you. I can contact your loved one. I can give you messages and all. Be careful of all this stuff, everybody. Please be careful. There are many legitimate people out there, but there are also a whole ton of swindlers.
Out there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of swindlers out there. Be very careful. Do your diligence. Be careful with these things. A friend of mine went to one of these telephone psychic things. An intelligent person. This is not a stupid. I won't say the name who this person was. I would never give names out like that. But this is not a stupid person, a very educated person, and all that. She called me up and asked my opinion about this, and I says, honestly, be very careful. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. Well, she did it, and it was something. She got off very cheaply. Actually, it was like $75. And she says, "Oh my gosh, I should have listened to you." I says, "Well, I tried to tell you. Right. I tried to tell you." So just be careful of that. There are some good people. Had a conversation Saturday. A young man came. I was doing, matter of fact, that snowflake healing. Young man came in, was somewhat, curious about the paranormal, interested in getting into it, and that was one thing I really stressed in the conversation that I had with him. Was do your diligence, before joining a group, before contacting with people. Watch, do some research on it and see, because there are a lot of good people out there, but there are also a lot of bad people. And if you hook up with the wrong people, that could be a very big turnoff for you, and it might be something that would actually drive you away from it rather than bring you to it. So you don't want to do that. What are you writing down here? Taking notes?
No, just something that I remembered the priest telling me at one point.
Yeah.
So, to also clarify, my family, only one of them is religious in that aspect, to the point where she avidly goes to church. That would be my mother. She works for the church. She actually takes care of the priests. And I had only worked there briefly, but as strange as it may be, my job was to burn the belongings of former priests that had lived there. Because this place is more like a midway point, right? So it's like a place where priests that go through town can come and rest at and have a room there.
Okay.
Some that decide to stay longer will have just their own setup going on for years to come. But you get a lot of sick ones that come through town, and a lot of them end up passing away. My mother, she's a nurse, but working for the church, she takes care of them, changes them, whatever they need, she'll take care of them. But they pulled me in because the gentleman that was in charge of that is getting a lot older, and he's developing Alzheimer's, so he's forgetting everything.
Gee, yeah.
So, working there for briefly about 2 weeks, it, started to feel weird. Not to say that, crazy stuff was going on.
I was just saying, I don't think that job would be for everybody. Yeah.
I mean, even for people that are skeptical, would you knowingly take a bunch of a priest's belongings and just burn it?
I was just kind of,
probably.
It just seems weird.
It seems weird that they would do that.
It's just weird.
You know.
And when I'm going through these
Is there
things,
some reason they do that? Like,
I mean,
well, you don't want
like clothing and things that you don't really like. You can't donate the costumes and the robes to charity.
No, they're not going to want. Yeah, no.
No. The robes usually get upcycled to other priests. That way, they don't have to custom tailor to another person.
Well, now we're talking. Now, well, when we say robes, you're not talking about like vestments they wear during the mass. Those aren't actually the property of the priest or the property of the church, and they're only worn during ceremonial. The everyday clothes that the priests wear, I don't know of any priests that wear the cassocks and the robes anymore. They don't dress that way anymore. They wear just like maybe a suit jacket and the little collar and the shirt and that kind of thing like that. Just, their personal clothing and that, which I could see them just getting rid of that.
Not quite. So they do have normal clothing like the rest of us,
most
but
of them just wear regular street clothing. It's not like,
It's not much.
Yeah, no, they don't own
No,
much,
it's like maybe like
a
two
few
outfits.
Changes. Yeah, that's all. A couple of changes
Two
of clothes,
outfits,
that's all they need.
but the majority of the time they actually just wear the robes and stuff. When they're walking around, they wear the robes.
I didn't know. I
yeah,
don't know
they don't wear normal clothes like us. When
I don't
they're
know of
walking
any
through the
priests that
halls.
wear the. You're talking about the cassock. They wear the black cassock.
No, they wear different things. So there's some of them that have gray Gandalf-looking robes. I own one at my house. From a priest that was very nice to me.
Maybe
I kept
this
his
is
robes.
priests that are in this situation you're talking about, that live in this home and this thing, that they dress that way. I've never seen priests. I can't remember the last time I saw priests out on the streets dressed
the priests
that way.
I knew in my neighborhood, they didn't.
No.
They
just
rarely
wore
leave that area
like this.
because, like I said, my mother takes care of them. So a lot of them don't have the accessibility to walk on their own anymore or travel around. But when they are in their room, they're either wearing pajama type of clothing, or some kind of like loose-fitting thing.
Oh, okay.
But
all right, now I get it.
If they're in the halls,
but it's not something to wear streetwear out on the streets.
they rarely go out, and the
This
ones
sounds
that
like more like a hospice kind of
Yeah,
situation.
that's what I was just thinking.
and
Yeah.
the ones that do go out on the street are the main priests for the church,
Mm-hmm.
but only one of them that I've seen actually does that, and he just changes into biking attire because he likes to go biking. But the rest of them, even when they're in their own sectors of the building, so at the lower part of this building in the basement, there's actually little rooms. Each of them has a quirk, and some of them that have similar quirks can also be in that room. So there is an engineering room where ones that like to manufacture little metal things, create stuff out of like steel, they can go in there and cut stuff up and make something. There's a woodworking room for the ones that like to do that stuff. There's the one who taught me this stuff is he's more into sewing. So he sews stuff. And he's the guy that has to sew new robes for guys that come in, custom tailoring. But when certain priests do pass away and, they have all these extra robes, it's a lot of material gone to waste. So they'll take the robes, they'll clean them up, and store them in a storage spot. So when new ones come in, they can give that to them for now and then make them something else later if they need be. But they do come in different types, and honestly, when they do wander outside, usually with my mother or somebody else, they are wearing the full white gowns, or they're wearing a full black one. And we're talking about, this isn't like they got the little black suit with the white collar thing. No, it's nothing like that. They look like Jedis and Sith walking around.
Okay.
And that's why I kind of kept one, because I was like, man, this is really cool. This is like really good RPG clothing. I
was going to say, I have not seen a priest dressed in a cassock since I was a kid.
Yeah,
I haven't seen them dressed that way.
They walk around wearing that stuff, but it's not too common. They're on the street.
And then I guess it depends on the order of the priests too. Like certain, like
so there are different ones in there.
Well, I know like monks and friars still do wear the robes. They do.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
do that. Yeah.
You get a couple different ones in there. You get a couple deacons that are in there. The archdiocese is somewhere in there, but that guy, honestly, I don't really talk to that guy. He's like the head boss of the place, but he doesn't really strike me as a priest type. He strikes me as somebody who just clocked in the work, and he's going to disappear like half the day.
Okay.
So I don't know what's up with that. I know that the former one was really all about that
How long
stuff.
did you work at this place?
2 weeks, but
And
my mother's been working there since
in 2 weeks you found all this out?
No.
I started a job in 2 weeks. I was just barely learning how to do the paperwork or something.
Figured out with the bathroom.
Yeah. I'm like, man, you really picked up on a lot of stuff there in 2 weeks, man.
No. So my mother had been working there since I was a child.
Uh-huh.
Right, I'm 27 now, so it's been
and I'm
good
sure
20
you
years.
probably came in and out with your mom.
Yeah, I
at
was
different
always
times,
in and
always
out talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, but it was just during the 2 weeks span.
Why just a short time for you? Why only the 2 weeks? You just couldn't handle it? You thought, nah, not really for me. I'm done with this.
No, the guy with Alzheimer's suddenly remembered he doesn't want my help.
Okay, all right.
And that struck everybody else with grief because they're like, oh, no, please don't leave because this guy, he's going to forget that he fired you tomorrow. Trust me.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? He's kind of getting really, really, like, aggressive. And I don't want him to try to get physically aggressive with me if something happens, like, in his head. So with that being said, I had left from there, but there were certain things that I found in that place that actually struck me as odd, which we spoke about before. So certain things, certain pictures, scrapbooks, each priest has a scrapbook, and usually when they pass away, you get rid of it. But sometimes I would go through these scrapbooks just to see their life from beginning to end, which is so crazy to see that in pictures.
Yeah.
Even to the point of I found like little postcards from people who are like, oh, I know our love wasn't meant to be because you're in the order, but this is my final letter to you. I'm dying. And I'm like, oh, this is so sad.
Sure. And then you're destroying this. It's like that person's life has just been wiped out.
Yeah,
it's like they didn't
that's what it felt like.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore. They're just, they never were.
No.
They're just like forgotten.
There was a secret conference room that they all go into. Nobody else is really in there with them. This secret conference room, I was sent in there to set up rat traps. Not that there was rats in there, but they said as extra precaution, they wanted a rat trap above each and every ventilation area. So while I was setting it up, I was like, man, this place looks really nice. You know, compared to the rest of the place looked like a mental institution kind of. On the inside, it's just tile flooring, tile walls, you know,
very Spartan and nothing,
yellow and monotone colors, just very unappealing. But this room, mahogany type of floors, hardwood, everything, and we're talking about like heavy wood. This stuff was beautiful. Everything from the shelves to everything was like.
And this was the area they were concerned about the rats.
Yeah. And this place was different from the rest of the place. They had like rugs that looked like they were made in India. Beautiful, intricate designs on them.
Okay.
You know, even the chairs had like lion designs on them. So I'm like, wow, this is where all the money for the church went. But I noticed all these books, all these special leather books. And as a person who likes reading certain books myself, especially older books that aren't revised, aren't updated with missing information, I decided to open a couple of them. And in one of the books, I saw a priest. This priest, I'm pretty sure he's no longer with us, but this priest went to Africa. And it said the indoctrination of an African village. Not sure which village, but the pictures were him coming there, taking pictures with everybody, kind of like how Taylor Swift takes pictures with little kids in Nairobi and stuff. You know, he's just standing there in a pack of people.
Sure, all right.
And it starts getting weirder and weirder to the point where during one portion of it, he had a man with his hands behind his head on the floor, and he had his foot on the back of his head with one hand up. And the women in the other pictures had their heads bowed, and they were kneeling down in a circle with each other, not towards the priest.
This could have been a case of a demon possession or something. Maybe that's why the guy was down on the floor and they were praying for him or whatever.
I don't know. I think he was sent there to do missionary stuff, like bring the religion to that village. But the way that he went about it,
so he was using force to do it?
Perhaps. But it was so strange looking that I mentioned it to the priest that had taught me about the exorcism rites.
No description written on the photo or anything, what it was, you know.
Some of them do have descriptions, but brief. It's just man with father such and such, and then it'll say the year.
Okay.
But some of them don't have that. So it's just a picture.
So you know something.
So I'll know it's within a certain year or between a year, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what was going on. But seeing how it says the indoctrination of such and such village, I go, that doesn't sound very missionary when you put it like that.
No.
Well, that sounds about right. That's Christianity's number one job is to indoctrinate.
Yeah.
Just the
That's
way
true.
that
indoctrinates is it's just a more fancy word, especially if it's from like the 40s or something like that.
Sure.
And this is around that time period. This is 1951 when it was happening.
It's sort of a way of a forced religion. You're not necessarily converting people; you're forcing them into it.
Yeah,
that's an old tactic. It was
fear
used by
tactic.
See this fresh water and nice food. It's all yours if you look at that guy.
Well,
instead.
how do you think Spain was able to conquer, civilizations in Central America that existed for 5,000 years before they got there?
Mm-hmm.
Within 15 years, they were able to conquer it through religion.
No.
They said, "Oh, look at this!
And a
You
lot
know,
of
your
murder.
people are sick. They're dying from measles, from smallpox. And look at us. We're all fine. You know why we're okay? Because we have this cross. We believe in this. This is it. You got to believe in this too, and then this won't happen to you." Well, of course, that wasn't the reason. The reason was because they, if they were in, their late teens or 20s, they survived those diseases. They were immune to them, but they would carry them to the Indians who had no immunity to this, and within 15, 20 years, they conquered the whole Central America.
So, in a perspective, right?
And forced their religion on them.
Because of these changes in religion, let's go off of changes in religion, because this actually ties into the exorcism stuff, which is how I know that a lot of these papers are fake.
Oh, this one I was very suspicious of right off the bat. Like I said, I just printed this up. I did this morning. I printed it up right off the bat and it said the Litany of the Saints. I kind of suspected right there this wasn't the authentic thing. And plus, I don't think the church is going to put something as secretive and as sacred as the rites of exorcism out there for anybody to just print up off the internet. I highly doubt that.
So the way that I know that this is fake is actually because this is two separate versions of an exorcism. The portion that I'm holding is midway through the exorcism. The portion that you're holding is the Lutheran version of an exorcism. So, believe it or not, the Lutherans actually had their own version of this, a revised version. So it's not the original way to exorcise something. The Lutherans had their own version, which used a lot of pieces from the Bible that they had from the revised edition. So Mark and Luke are passages within this exorcism that you're holding on your side of the table. In this version of the exorcism, it doesn't have that.
No.
So
things
Lutherans
change.
are
Just diet Catholics, so.
Oh yeah, well, they're an offshoot of Catholicism.
And
yeah.
The reality is, during a Lutheran exorcism, they don't say "in the name of Jesus Christ" at all. They don't do that. Only in the original version of an exorcism, they say, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I compel you." That's where that would come from the original version. The Lutheran version doesn't contain that. It's mostly used, the Lutheran version is mostly used to not necessarily exorcise, but in their words, it's called a minor exorcism. A minor exorcism. Now, it's like, when I say it like that, it's like, oh, if you got shot, you can't say, "I got minorly shot." You still got shot.
I was just going to say, how is it? What is it? Is there like degrees of exorcism?
So
there's degrees of demon possession.
Supposedly there's 4, but I never got taught any of that kind of stuff. I just know that there's a minor and the actual version. So the minor version is what should have been used during the exorcism. The minor version is just a cleansing. So when we say minor exorcism, that is just a bigger fancy term for bringing a priest to your house to do the cleansing.
A blessing in the house, yeah. Right.
Blessing somebody's
or
house.
Like people do the sage cleansings and those type of things.
That is considered a minor exorcism. But
yeah.
they don't say it like that because they don't want people to try to get them confused.
Of course. Yeah, it would be. I could see where it would be confusing, yes.
Yeah, because if somebody says online, they're doing a minor exorcism at my house, the Vatican's going to cure it for days.
Now, Christ, of course, we know, so it says, cast out demons. We know he did this in his ministry on earth. We know he did that. And he was able to do this without any form of religious exorcisms or anything. Of course, his case, you have to admit, is very unique. He's the one and only the Jesus Christ.
He kind of has the authority.
He had the power to do this. He could do this. No one else could. So why then can people just not do this?
What's the argument?
Well, this is actually why we don't do it. So let's go back to the main topic of why this went wrong and why it went badly. So as I said before,
I think the reason it went wrong and went badly is because the people that were doing it didn't know what they were doing.
Absolutely,
didn't know how to use it.
I'm not going to disagree with him there.
Yeah,
when I did this, I wasn't supposed to be doing this.
No, they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't trained right for it's. They didn't learn it the right way. They weren't trained right for this. It's a special thing. This is a special thing,
So, essentially, when I was called to do this house investigation, I was very skeptical. I kept trying to deter them and say, look, you're grief-stricken, give it a little bit. It's probably not this. It might actually be this.
See, there again comes with that grief-stricken. When people are in that state, they're very, very vulnerable. And they'll try almost anything.
Now, something that does come up through there, which is where I take it with a little bit of grain of salt, is that you got people that have like EPK, that...
What's EPK? And I don't know what that is.
Well, there's Just from some studies that some people had over in the UK, EPK would be like an extra sense that somebody would have. So, like, have you ever, had a panic attack in a room, and then somebody else who had no idea you're having a panic attack is starting to feel a certain way? They said that that's kind of like a herd mentality, that when one person's panicking, they'll all slowly start panicking.
Oh, okay. All right.
So in this grief situation, one of them will start feeling a certain way, causing everybody else to feel
it's a shared
down
grief
with you too.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
then,
now you just came from a funeral home.
And
you saw a lot of people there sharing the grief. And there were probably people that came in there that weren't really maybe even close to the family, just were they were
and
prepared
they start
to
feeling a certain
and they
way.
started feeling because they're picking it up from the other folks that are in the room,
So that would be kind of like the EPK thing.
You can't help but have it, when you have that kind of, in an area like that, you can't help but absorb some of that and it affects you.
There's some people out there that believe EPK can transfer into something, let's say like a poltergeist, where
I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was
kinda,
called. I didn't know. I never heard EPK.
Yeah, same.
But I knew what you're talking about. But I never heard it called
EPK, that. ESP is one of them. But in this case scenario, somebody would say, let's say you're one of those people like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and you keep doing that, and then it actually happens, and then you're just kind of sitting there like, what just happened? That's where the ESP thing would be.
I was going to say, that's more ESP, that's intuitiveness, that's intuition. And some people, that's kind of a coincidence, isn't it? They just sort of blow it off as coincidence. And sometimes it's not really coincidence. It's those inner voices.
That's where the
speaking
ESP comes in.
Yeah.
But in this case scenario, I said, well, let me go check. And I hired my guys, right? My guys no longer want to do work with me because it's not because of what we did there. It's just more or less because they don't have time to go to these people's houses. They're getting paid this much an hour to be at work, doing carpentry. Carpentry is a very big thing in the economy right now.
Sure.
And they don't want to waste their time hunting phantoms with me, Even for the sake of, let's say for the sake of argument, they don't want to work with me due to the fact that why waste their time coming out here if I don't even believe in that fully, right?
They're getting paid.
They're not getting paid as much as they could be.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, because if you're getting paid $18 an hour and I'm telling you like, yeah, man, I'll give you like $50 right on over for me real quick. They're not going to want that.
They give you $50 an hour, though.
I wish $50
Well, maybe
an
something
hour.
that they do is which I think most paranormal investigators, when they start off, do it more as a part-time thing because many people are still working. They're doing their full-time job where they're earning their living from, and then this is my weekend thing, almost a hobby type thing like that, which does, eventually lead to some. Hopefully,
I mean, that's
sometimes.
like us. So this is why we do this.
Of course.
Unless you're getting paid, I'm not getting paid too much.
So, in this case scenario, I went to the house.
I get that much.
I ended up giving the team a call later that night because I had a small GoPro with me. And I shoved the GoPro on the table because I'm like, okay, I've taken everything with a grain of salt. Let me make sure, because the first thing they said is that they set up these balloons for the grandmother in front of like a little altar place. And they said that like everything's been moving around. So I set it on the table facing towards the balloons and stuff. And I'm in the kitchen in a hallway. So the altar's right here on a wall, and it's like this. So while the altar's right here on the wall, there's a long hallway going down. You could see us talking at the end of that hallway.
Okay.
And while I'm talking in the hallway, both the balloons went down, traded places, and went back up. And to me, upon reviewing that, because I went back and I knew, I was like, let me just check this real quick, because if I didn't see anything here, there's probably nothing here. Right, it's probably just somebody they're thinking they're seeing stuff.
A balloon moving would be kind of an easy one to find an explanation for.
Well, both of them were filled with helium.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, static discharge, the AC, and it gets
Yeah,
turned on
yeah.
a heater.
So
Sure.
I went
Changing
to
the temperature in the room, all sorts of things.
I went to the extent, and I said, well, look, there's a ventilation shaft right on the wall, right where they were floating up, so it has to be that. So I closed the vent. Right, and I was like, let me unplug everything in here. Let me make sure everything's cool. And it didn't do it again. So I went to the kitchen, put the GoPro in the cabinet where we were talking, and then I started hearing scratching noises. We had already left the kitchen. I heard scratching noises, and I heard a little bang from in there. So then I'm like, okay, the bang noise could be a pipe in the wall, but the scratching noise could be a rat. Who knows? But it was loud enough, and when I looked in the cabinet, there's no holes, no nothing like that. And they're on the top floor of this building. So why a rat would be all the way up there in that exact spot where I put it kind of makes me think, okay, well, let me call these guys, see if they can find anything. So I call the guys. They started checking out the walls, trying to see if there's any discrepancies, whether the wall's rotten and there's rats crawling through this building. It got to an extent, though, while we're looking around and the guys are checking the pipes, they're checking everything. I'm asking the owner of the building. They got into contact with him. I didn't really want to bother the guy, but they pressured me on it. So we called him and said, can we turn off the power to the building real quick? We're just trying to check something out up here. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And as he says that's fine, a actual gust of like cigarette smoke hits me, and I can see it. And I was like, what the hell? And one of my guys came through. He's like, hey, the lady said, oh. And I'm like, what do you mean, oh? He's like, yeah, she was talking about that the cigarettes that their grandmother smokes. Sometimes they'll just be walking in the house and the smoke will hit them. And I'm like, well, that just kind of happened to me right now. So I went downstairs and I asked a neighbor down there. I'm like, hey, do any of you guys smoke? You know, because if you're smoking and it's going through up the stairs, you know.
There again, you're trying to debunk it and find something.
I'd want to be able to see if I smell it there.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's a lingering scent stuck to the stairs because it was a rug staircase.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, maybe it's stuck, but that wouldn't explain the smoke that I literally just walked through.
You may smell it, but you won't see the actual...
Mm-hmm. So as I go inside, I talk to the family more. I sit them down and I said, look, before I go any further, I need you guys to tell me every little thing, because if I have to find out the hard way through every little thing, it's going to make me not want to be here. Right? You got to tell me everything up front, what's going on. So,
but you, as an investigator going in there, aren't you better off going in not knowing rather than them telling you, and then you are kind of looking for it? They're saying, oh, we smell Grandma's cologne over here. Oh, we see Grandma's smoke over there. And then you know this, so now, all right, I'm looking for smoke. I'm looking for... Exactly.
Well,
right. Aren't you better off not knowing it, you know?
Well, that's a good and a bad thing. The thing
like
is that
doing a reading. It's better off not knowing anything about the person than knowing this about them or that about them or this about them.
Well, it's because I got the guys on the clock, you know?
Yeah.
And if I'm paying them by the hour to be sticking around here, I need to know where to send them to look for. So if they're hearing scratching, banging in the wall, I need that guy to go look over there instead of wasting hours of money trying to see where it could be. And then we end up not actually checking the spot where it is, you know? And then the guy's already at home and they're like, oh, you didn't even check over there. It's like, you guys didn't say anything, you know? Like, you want me to debunk this for you. You need to let me know what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and where it's at. That way I can get these guys to check that out and rule out the scientific possibilities. Because once they leave, you know, I'm no carpenter. I'm no plumber or electrician, really.
Yeah.
So I couldn't possibly be able to debunk that on my own. And if I had to call him, tell him to turn around, I'd have to pay him double for wasting his time.
How does it go from having HVAC guys and woodworkers and such there to you performing an exorcist in this building?
That is on day 2. So it was a 3-day thing, but on day 2, that's when things actually went downhill. That's when I started getting really offset. And for a guy that doesn't really go, oh yeah, there's all these demons, I know so many satanic rites, all this stuff, like, no. I'm just a regular guy, no edgy thing about it. I don't make stuff up when I'm in there. I don't say, oh, I think something touched me. Like, it's never like that. So on day 2, we invited one of the carpenters back because he's a very religious guy, right? But he knows too, though, to not screw around out there. Otherwise, he won't get paid to come back, you know? Because for somebody that's like, it's your day off, you could possibly make $200 just for nothing. You know, you don't want to blow that possibility of making free extra money.
Sure, it's a nice little side job.
It's fun.
You don't have to break down walls or anything. You just got to check things out. Do what you're normally supposed to do without actually having to work.
Yeah.
You know,
you're like doing an inspection.
Basically a very high valuable inspection. And he started doing something in the living room with them with a white candle. Not really sure, but he started doing like Hail Mary type of stuff, right, with the family, having them all hold hands. I don't think it was a seance. He was just saying stuff that just sounded like church stuff to me. But I'm in the hallway with another camera. I had another camera, and they said that earlier that morning they heard somebody walking back and forth across the rooms in that long hallway. So I'm like, it's probably just the floors. I mean, we didn't really check the floors. So it could be, the house is like settling a little bit in those areas. So when you hear a creak, it could be the people downstairs.
Okay, are you hearing a creak, or are you actually hearing a...
Well, they said it was more like...
an actual footstep, or is it just a,
From the way they described it, it was like...
Sounds more like a footstep.
It was like a footstep, but they said, you hold it. And I said, I don't know what that means. They're like, what do you mean? And they're like, imagine somebody's taking a step, but real slow and heavy.
Okay, that's an old person.
So I said, well, perhaps it's the people from downstairs. They're walking across that area, and because the foundation of this building must be ancient, when they're walking that area downstairs, they feel it up here because of the support beams in the walls that are attached to that area. It could be. But as he's doing it, I'm staring down the long hallway with my camera, and I start seeing what looks like snow, right? And I'm like, okay, maybe just the air in here is just dusty, some
dust particles, whatever. Yeah.
Dust particles, but it was just so many of them, so white, and they were just going in different directions all around. So I'm like, this is like dust particles if somebody attacked, somebody's ceiling insulation. It's just too much. And when I take the camera off, I don't see anything. But I raise it back up, and I'm seeing it. And as he's getting more and more, I start hearing that slow footstep thing. And this is where I kind of panicked a little bit because I could see the tiles in the floor moving. Not like shifting around, but it's like these vinyl tiles they had on the floor. Just, a regular dollar store type of ones.
Sure, okay, yeah.
But I actually see them moving. And I know they were moving because as I'm looking at the floor... you could obviously see like where the tile cutouts are.
Yeah.
And I could see it sloping little by little, and it's coming towards me. And I hear it getting louder and louder, and the mother in the living room is panicking because I'm telling this guy, I'm actually yelling at him at this point. I'm like, hey, chill, dude, cut it out. Because I don't know what's going on. And it just got to that point where I stopped recording. I hit the lights.
So do you have this footage?
No.
Of times?
Everything.
So never. Always gone. Always gone.
No, this is where it actually got me mad. Because right in the living room, there is an Apple computer, right, that is just picking up all this stuff in real time and putting it into our Google Doc, right? And everybody has access to the Google Doc as a viewer. So no matter what's going on during the day, whether somebody's at home or they're in their car, they can log in, they can go to the doc, and as the investigation's going, you'll see stuff either being typed out by me or somebody else that comes up to the computer to put something in. So that way, if wherever they are, if they couldn't make it, whatever, they can log in. They'll see, it says child flying around the living room. Send help. In that case scenario, the only reason why I have that up there is just as a grain of salt. This grain of salt that I hold in my mind is if something happens out there and I'm typing this in, somebody else is going to see this, and they'll call 911 for me if I'm not able to.
Okay.
So that's just like a real big backup thing, to always have somebody knowing exactly what's going on. And with multiple people seeing that
that's what's good to have
helps.
witnesses with you.
But it's recording stuff in real time and putting it through. And, everybody else that was with the Carpenter team, or at least some of them, had seen what was going on, and they started buzzing my phone. They're asking what's going on. That sounds kind of serious.
And when you see the tile was moving, was the tile just like raising and lowering, or was it actually just moving?
No,
moving to different places.
No, you see like how this is right here.
Yeah,
I was seeing it do that.
Okay, so it's going
like,
up and down.
Bowing down.
It's bowing. It's just like it was a slight bow, but it's enough to where you're focusing on it
and you can notice
see
it. Yeah, you can see the movement.
And it wasn't matching with what I was hearing. So while I'm hearing it, it's not bowing at the same pace as the step. So that's kind of what had me a little bit like offset, where it's like I'm hearing it, but visually...
Two separate entities?
I don't know. But visually, it wasn't lining up, which kind of falls into that theory that I have that what if this second dimension is carried over? So it's here, but not in the same existence. So it could be here, but not be able to touch anything, like it'll phase through.
Okay.
It's just energy existing in the same place as us, but not being physical enough to do anything.
So then this energy is just energy, it's not paranormal.
It could have been one or the other.
We don't know.
We don't know. And that's why...
And having none of this on video or anything, you can't really go back and study it. You can't go back and look at it. And you know.
So that's where everything really went downhill. Because that little camera that I had, all I have left of it is the back piece to it.
What happened to the camera?
Disappeared off the table, and then the actual computer crashed. Never wanted to turn back on since. So when I took it to Apple, they're like, oh yeah, we think it was hacked by like a third party from overseas. Did you guys try to like send anybody gift cards or whatnot? I'm like, no, it was working just fine.
Same thing happened to Adam and Eve. They had the first computer. It was an Apple. One bite and it all crashed. And, with that, we're going to have to discontinue this, and we're going to have to pick it up at a later date. How would that be? We've already ran a little over. We went to an hour and a half. We could probably go another hour and a half. I'd love to have you come back on and do some more time with this. So we need you to come back on, Eddie.
Yeah, we're stopping on this cliffhanger of moving tile, missing cameras,
and
bad Apple service.
Yeah, missing people. We have a lot of missing things in our lives, don't we, that we can't account for.
We'll find Pete sooner or later, maybe.
Yeah. I kind of, well, I don't want to talk about it in the air, but I kind of told you what I felt happened. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, with that, thank you so. This was
We're on a good cliffhanger.
Leland, thank you so much for coming back on. Anything else you got to say in closing, Leland?
No, it's just good to be back. Let's keep this grooving.
Yeah.
When's the next day that you guys want to do this again?
Once a month we do the show. So this was the December show. We'll do another one in January. We'll pick it up again in January.
You'll have to wait till next year to hear the end of
the story. We'll do it in.
No.
Well, it's a cliffhanger. That's how we get listeners to come back and listen to the show. It's a cliffhanger. We kind of leave it there. Yeah.
But I'm going to find out after this what happened.
Yeah. No, he's not going to tell you. You're going to have to. You're going to have to come back too. Yeah, he's not going to. Eddie is sworn to secrecy.
The Cleveland Brown when he's running after Peter Griffin's car.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting that you refer like, well, in the movie they did this, or in the movie I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's the movie. You know, that's not the. You know.
Well, there's a lot of similarities to a lot of stuff. But,
yeah.
You know, everything in the movies is loosely based on it. So there are some similarities, but there's really nothing of context.
It's loosely based, but it's glamorized and it's made much bigger. It's entertainment. It's entertaining. You know, that's what it's supposed to be.
It's dramatic.
And you know, and if it does spark, and I say this about all these shows and all this paranormal stuff you watch on, you know, Ghost Adventures and all this stuff and everything. I said if it does inspire somebody to look into this a little more deeply and maybe to pursue it for themselves, it's served a good purpose. You know, it does. So anything, if you watch some movie and the movie maybe inspires you to maybe research this a little more, or maybe take it a little more seriously and say, hey, this is something I'd like to check out, then it's done something good. So much for that. Eddie, thank you so much.
No
great
problem.
Show. Yeah, great show. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, and we're going to continue this in January. We want you to come back and talk about this again. Yeah, boy, it's like a one-man show.
I know.
I love this. You know,
I didn't have to come today. You guys had.
Well, thank you. All right, John, we are going to. You know what? Before I forget, everyone.
Oh, yeah?
Since we are in December, everybody have a wonderful Christmas season.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is Kwanzaa the day after Christmas, like Boxing Day, the 26th?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but I know it's around this time too, Kwanzaa. So Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, you know, just have a wonderful, happy holiday season and everything.
And a Happy New Year.
What is this? 12/21 is...
that's the legitimate part.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
In closing note, everybody, observe the darkness, but be not of it.
That's it. There you go. Yeah, watch it, keep aware of it. Like anything else, watch your surroundings, be aware of what's going on around you, investigate it, and don't take anything for face value. Yeah, look into everything yourself. Do a little investigating on your own to everything. Minds are fascinating things. Everybody needs an inquisitive mind. Yeah, good. Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to do this. And there again, everybody have a wonderful, happy holiday season, and we'll see you all in January.
You have been listening to Paranormal Radio with Bob Trzeciak from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, December the 4th, the year 2023. Paranormal Radio was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. Until next time, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless America. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Monday, December the 4th, the year 2023. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our great listeners.